So thanks again for joining us. Today's program, Shifting to a Zero Emissions Fleet, Infrastructure, Planning, Financing, and Management, will focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector, which is crucial in our efforts to achieve climate change-related goals. This is the third program in our series, and it's made possible by the support of our sponsors that are listed on your screen. And we'd like to take just a minute to highlight our Voltage sponsors. BG&E is a longtime MCEC supporter and partner. We're happy to have them, and we have a speaker from BGE today. Schneider Electric is supporting this series for the first time this year. Siemens, who will be highlighting e-mobility in today's webinar. And finally, Kohn-Resnick, a special thanks to them, returning as our power sponsor for the series at large. Kohn-Resnick is an award-winning advisory assurance and tax firm with offices based in Bethesda, Maryland. So our panel today is amazing. As a reminder, our speakers' bios are online at the www.mdcleanenergy.org/zeroemissionsfleet/. Now I'd like to introduce today's moderator, and we're so pleased to have him with us. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo represents Maryland's 15th district and is a member of the House Environment and Transportation Subcommittee. He is a passionate champion for policy that supports mitigation of climate change measures. And interestingly, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo was born in Ecuador. He attended Albert Einstein High School in Kensington, Maryland, and is a graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland with a bachelor's degree in history. He has also been a police officer in Montgomery County, the director of operations for the National Youth Leadership Forum, and has a tremendous background in website management. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, thanks for being our moderator today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I just want to start off by saying thank you for putting this panel together and the previous panels. I think this is such an important issue. I've been a Maryland State Delegate for going on 9 years now, and I love what I do. Of all the things that I've done in my life, this is the most fun. This is what I'm probably the most passionate about, and for obvious reasons. So some of the big things when we put this panel together that we wanted to talk about were, what are we doing? What should we be doing as far as the transition to from a fleet transportation perspective, and how do we do it? So these are the big things that I think that would be good for us to get at. I'll kind of start off with that, talk a little bit, then we'll go straight to our panelists, and then we'll circle back with that as well. And we want to save as much time for Q&A as possible, because I think that's where a lot of the learning and a lot of the collaboration takes place, is in a lot of Q&A. So as a member of the Maryland General Assembly, just in the last couple of years, some things that we've done, as I said, 30% or more of greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation sector. So transitioning our fleets all the way across the board is extraordinarily important. It's what we have to do, and we have to do it as quickly as possible. So in this past session, we passed several bills, some of them having to do with energy credit, tax credits for electric vehicles, some of them having to do with buses, transitioning buses, working with BG&E. You'll hear more about that. Trucks, big heavy fleet trucks, and all kinds of transportation related issues. And there's going to be more to do as far as that's concerned. And you'll hear more from our panelists as far as some of the other bills that we passed and what we're moving forward on. And with that said, I want to move as quickly as possible through our panelists. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing our panelists. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. They know their bios. As Kathy mentioned, their bios are up online. So we'll just kind of go through our panelists. They'll introduce themselves, give themselves a very, very quick snippet of what their bio is. And then if you want to read more, it's all online, as Kathy said. We'll go through all 6 of our panelists, incredible group here today, to talk about how we make that transition. And then we'll circle back and do some Q&A on some of the big questions, and then just kind of open it up. So with that said, Christy, I think you are first. So Christy with BG&E, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Christy Fleischman-Gronke. I'm Senior Manager of Strategic Planning at BGE, overseeing all of our transportation electrification initiatives. I've been in this role for about 4 years, working on BGE's programs, which I'll cover in the next couple slides. I've been with BGE for over 15 years in various roles, from our energy efficiency programs to our customer operations department. But working on our EV programs has been a really exciting, and really enjoy all of the work that we're able to do through BGE. You can move to the next slide. So BGE launched our EV Smart programs in July of 2019, and this was to support Maryland's goal of reaching 300,000 EVs by 2025. The Maryland Public Service Commission felt that the utilities were in a great space to help educate our customers on the benefits of switching to an electric vehicle, and then provide incentives for installing charging stations at their home, whether it's a single family home or multifamily. And then provide them the tools and the links to identify other incentives available, and calculate, the savings that they would see from switching from a gas vehicle to an electric vehicle. Move to the next slide. So this slide covers all of the programs that are under our EV Smart portfolio. We had 1,000 residential rebates at $300 each, and this was to promote customers installing smart chargers in their home, which would allow them to schedule their charger to charge off peak, and also gave the utility insight into their charging behavior, so they could plan accordingly for increased EV adoption. And once those rebates were exhausted, the Maryland Public Service Commission approved an ongoing $50 annual incentive. So this is to encourage customers to stay connected with BGE, so ensuring that their smart charger or their vehicle telematics remain connected to the program, and that they charge off peak. And assuming they remain connected and charge off peak at least 90% of the year, they'll receive a $50 annual incentive. For commercial chargers, as I mentioned in the beginning, the Maryland Public Service Commission was focused on home charging, whether it was single family or multifamily. So we initially started with rebates for multifamily properties up to $30,000 per location. Over the course of the pilot period, the Commission has approved additional incentives in workplace and fleet rebates on that same structure of that you see above, that was previously approved for multifamily, so up to $5,000 per level 2 port, $15,000 for a DC fast charger, for a site max of $30,000. Additionally, we've seen that we were hearing from a lot of barriers from multifamily property owners, whether it's the cost of installing charging stations, where to put them, who pays for the electricity. So we asked the Commission for a small program to own and operate the charging stations on multifamily properties. We were granted to install 500 level 2 stations at multifamily properties. And that program has been hugely successful. I think we're oversubscribed at this point in installing BGE owned infrastructure at multifamily locations. And lastly, our public charging network, we were approved to install 500 charging stations throughout our service territory. And we were meant to install these charging stations in the community, so where the private market isn't going. They're mainly targeting highway corridors and some of the larger retail establishments. And BGE is targeting community centers, local parks, schools, libraries, courthouses, and places that customers would go every day and start to see these charging stations in their communities. And this would lead to increased installations from the private market. So, trying to combat in 2019 the chicken and egg sort of conundrum of the private companies aren't installing charging stations because there isn't EVs, and customers aren't purchasing EVs because they don't know of the charging infrastructure. So starting to make customers familiar with charging stations in their communities to help spur EV adoption. Can move to the next slide. So some of our progress to date, we have 235 of the charging stations energized, and a total of 445 in progress of our 500 approved. And we have rebated 179 multifamily ports. And as I mentioned, we're in progress for all 100 of our BGE owned multifamily stations. And then we've received residential applications from over 2,000 customers. Next slide. So getting into more of the topics of this conversation today, BGE was approved almost 2 weeks ago for a larger fleet offering. So in this January of 2022, the commission approved an online fleet calculator, and that's been available on bge.com. But on September 14th, they approved additional fleet offerings to include 50 technical assessments. So we will be releasing an RFP to secure a vendor to provide technical assessments, which are basically a business case of how fleet customers can electrify. So it includes everything from vehicle recommendations, charger recommendations, charging schedules, and outlines the benefits to the business of electrifying their fleet. So we're excited to get that moving and help some of the fleet customers that are considering EVs, really move forward with purchasing them for their companies. Next slide. And then once customers have completed the technical assessment, we are offering incentives to further help with their path to electrification by providing 100 make-ready incentives. So that would be all of the work that the utility has to do to bring service to that location. And then charger incentives for the actual purchase and installation of the charging station on the customer side. So anything past the meter. This will follow the similar structure we've had in place of up to $30,000 per location. Next slide. And then wrapping up on the electric school bus law out of the Climate Solutions Now Act, there is a law that was passed as House Bill and Senate Bill 696, which allows the utilities to file a program with the Maryland Public Service Commission for up to $50 million in electric school bus rebates to cover the incremental cost of a electric bus versus a diesel bus. The law also requires that the utility use the buses as grid resources. So working with the school system to come to an agreement of how the buses can be utilized as grid resources, whether it's peak shaving, resiliency hubs, and things like that. The utilities will file the plan, which will include, the incentive structure for the electric school buses, as well as the charging infrastructure, and training and other details on how the utilities will roll this out in their service territories. The program must commence by October 1st, 2024 and run from between 3 to 5 years. BGE has been working with the Maryland Public Service Commission's Electric Vehicle Working Group to come up with ideas and sort of brainstorm around this law to develop the best program for our state and our customers. We plan to have another session coming up in the next few weeks with the PSC work group, and then draft the proposal, which will be filed with the Maryland Public Service Commission. So we're excited to be able to support our counties in electrifying their school bus fleets, which is a direct response to the Climate Solutions Now Act. I think that was my last slide. So thank you for your time.
Okay, Claire, you were here.
Okay.
Good, great.
Yes, I
up.
am.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Delegate. I appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. My name is Claire Boredo Johnson. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Fermata Energy, but I've also been in the clean energy climate tech community in Maryland for over 20 years. And I'm actually dialing in. I was just speaking at the ROSI conference, the Ralph O'Connor Sustainable Energy Institute conference at Johns Hopkins, which is at the exact same time. So I'm in a little closet at Hopkins right now talking to you. But I'm happy to be here. I have been a big supporter of climate tech technologies for a long time. Just before this job, I was the managing director of the Maryland Momentum Fund, where we invested in 32 companies across the state of Maryland in 3 years that had an affiliation with the University System of Maryland. I also am a founder of Sun Edison, which we founded in 2003, spent several years with the federal government where I deployed a bunch of Stimulus Act money in 09 and 10, and have been involved at C-levels for a number of early stage startups, including Next Step Living, Sirius Energy, Katerra, and more. And so I'm very passionate about growing the entrepreneurial community in Maryland specifically, and just joined Fermata Energy, which is unfortunately based in Charlottesville, but I'm hoping very much to be able to build up an office in Maryland sometime soon. Next slide. Park it, plug it, profit. That is what we do. What if your electric vehicle can earn money while it's parked? With Fermata Energy's V2X, so vehicle to everything, bidirectional charging platform, your fleet EVs can make money for you by powering the grid. So our big aha, which is different from what Christy has been talking about, is not only can electric vehicles charge a building and a building can charge an electric vehicle, but our electric vehicles can charge the grid, which very much changes the way that electric vehicles will be used in the future. They're really considered storage on wheels. And storage in BGE regulated territory is still considered a generating asset and hence is regulated. And so there's a lot of work to be done on the regulatory front to really expand electric vehicles at scale in the state of Maryland. We call events earning events, where you have demand response or demand charge management fees that are very high. And the idea is we will tell you, we Fermata Energy will tell you as a Nissan Leaf fleet owner when it is ideal to discharge your vehicle to the grid. These earning events reduce the total cost of ownership of our fleet EVs, supporting your electrification and sustainability goals. Next slide. So V2X, again, vehicle to everything, benefits to you as a customer. You will turn a cost center, which is an electric vehicle, into a revenue generator, because where we are, which is 6 states, and I would love one of those states to be Maryland in the near future, but essentially those local utilities, National Grid, Eversource, Xcel, Southern California Edison, LADWP, they are paying us to discharge the electricity from our vehicle to their grid, so that those utilities no longer need to build new natural gas peaker plants. Our costs for our V2G, V2X charger, which is not considered a level 2, nor is it considered a DC fast charger. It is a DC off-boarding charger, so it has an inverter on it. And it is comparable, our V2G, which charges back to the grid, is comparable to a 20 kilowatt V1G charger that does not charge back to the grid. We have a no upfront cost option we're calling as a service option. You as a fleet owner will control your drive time. This is the big kicker, the big aha, is that we've met UL and IEEE standards. There's no other company in the United States that has done that with a bidirectional vehicle. There's a lot of press out there about people who are partnering to do pilot projects with this, but we're the only company that has done this over and over again and received funding from utilities to discharge to the grid. And we partner with OEMs on battery health. So a recent announcement, we currently work with Nissan Leafs because those are literally the only electric vehicles in the United States that have bidirectional capacity right now. But Nissan just made an announcement that we do not void their warranty, which is really critical. So just as a quick aside, there are many different use cases for electric vehicles. The F-150, Ford 150 with Sunrun is a really cool use case and not at all what we do. So just to be really clear, what the F-150 does is it allows you as a residential homeowner to go quote unquote off grid. Your F-150 ostensibly should be able to charge your house for a period of time if the grid goes out, if there's a blackout. What we're doing is we're selling electricity to the grid, which no one else has been able to do. Next slide. So here are a number of places where we've actually been really effective at making money by parking a car. You'll see lots of stuff in and around the state of Maryland, and we would love to do more work with BGE and Constellation and Exelon. The demand response rates and demand charge management rates are not nearly as high as they are in Colorado, California, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New York, but we are working to expand our base. Next slide. So traditional chargers are cost centers. The power only goes one way, from the grid to the car. Our charging systems are grid tied, meaning the platform can provide power when connected directly to the grid or to a grid connected building. So from a regulated utility perspective, any utility perspective, this looks a lot like quote unquote solar, where you have to get an interconnection approval and where you are charging the grid. We would love to work with anybody on this call about hoping to reduce interconnection application times, because that is a big issue in the electric vehicle space. So our V2X platform makes it possible to discharge energy from the EV battery to the grid, creating opportunities for your fleet to earn money while it's parked. Next slide. We're a company of firsts, which is part of why I joined it. And I still proudly live in Maryland, but I'm commuting back and forth to Charlottesville. Fermata's Energy V2X bidirectional platform is the first and only to be commercially deployed in the US for light duty vehicles, to earn UL 9741 certification in North America, to earn OEM approval for battery health, and to earn revenues for fleet customers, including payments from utilities like National Grid, Eversource, and others. Next slide. So this is really more as an educational tool. There's a lot of names and a lot of marketing going all over the place. Vita Grid or V2X is demand response, right? Your power is exported to the grid, supports utility grid demands and stability, generates revenues for the EV owner. We have the ability to integrate with renewable energy. Vehicle to building is demand charge management. So you get 15-minute interval data. You understand really effectively how an individual building, 123 Main Street, uses its energy. 2/3 of our company are software engineers and data scientists. We're getting really smart about how buildings use their energy, and how we can get smarter about when to tell you to charge or discharge your vehicle. So your energy use is like this. There's a big pop from 1 to 1:15. We tell you the next day to charge your vehicle at that time, or the next half hour. V2H is vehicle to home, residential emergency backup power, renewable energy integration, and supporting grid demand and stability. We will have a V2H solution sometime soon, but right now we're focused on the V2B and V2G at multiple customer sites across the US. Next slide. Here are some of our customers. Here are some of the utilities with whom we're working with. Right now, we are only working with a Nissan Leaf electric vehicle, because that is the only one in the United States that is bidirectional at this point. We are in lots of discussions with every OEM in the country about trying to make our bidirectionality capable in every OEM in the country that's interested in working with us. Next slide. Okay, I do have one quick answer to a question that was just issued, which is how can you talk about revenues that you're generating? The $4,000 referenced in the map was simply one summer. So telling a customer to charge their vehicle or discharge their vehicle to grid in a 2-month period, that customer was able to make $4,000 with one Nissan Leaf fleet. And with that, I will turn it back to Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Claire. I have a million questions, but the great thing about your presentation is you answered most of them, but I still have.
Great.
But great job. Okay, Dan, with Siemens, you are up.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Laurent. I'm with Siemens e-mobility business development team. So I handle the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm part of the e-mobility team that handles different products from small to large, from grid to plug or vice versa in this e-mobility market. So next slide. So we at Siemens like to call it plug to grid. We're obviously a large corporation that provides design build solutions for whatever application you might have. So whether it involves microgrid or greenfield or small projects, things like that, we have all the different resources available for you. And we make electric vehicle chargers from AC to DC from small to large, and we'll kind of touch on a few of the different products. We also make power distribution equipment, have for many, many years. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we have obviously the software services to kind of bring these pieces together. And then the services could be involve financing, things like that, and maintenance programs, warranty services, things like that. Next slide. So our company has been in the market for quite a few years here in the United States, 12 years plus. We have over or close to 3,000 channel partners, our distributor network. So these are them along with our sales teams, our resources that are available for your fleet application to discuss, to come up with a solution involving the hardware, the software, to manage and monitor your fleet. So we make products not only here in the United States, but overseas. And we are able to meet all the different Buy America, different requirements as well with facilities here in the United States, again, on all different product levels. Go ahead, next slide. So what products do we make? We have our level 2 charger, again, very common size product. We have a 9.6 and 11.5 kilowatt sized unit. We don't make a 30 amp, which has been historically the size to go with, just because we knew when we came out with this product even several years ago that the vehicle batteries are getting larger. Means the inverters on board are getting larger, and so their power requirements are increasing. That you're going to just continue to see the VersaCharge product kind of grow as the market continues to expand and need more power for their vehicles. We have a Ultra 175, that's our DC fast charge level 3. And then we also have a heavy duty product called the C-Charge UC, which is suitable for plug-in or pantograph type applications for transit, but the plug-in for fleet of automobiles, pickups, delivery vans, all those kind of different scenarios. So, and then obviously then we have the software to kind of bring all those pieces together. Next slide. So just real briefly, given the time we have here, but our VersaCharge product is, again, we feel a good sweet spot of powerful enough to handle most of the vehicles that are out there, but not be so large that it overwhelms the panel for the residential or even commercial type application. But it does have some really cool features, adjustable current, so you can install it in a retrofit application, which is real nice. You can also, it has different communication standards, different communications as standard. We can do RJ45, Wi-Fi, or cell connection, all out of one unit, and we can actually do simultaneously OCPP communications and Modbus communications. So that's very popular for building management systems, that you can have one system or a local control system, be able to manage loads and things like that. I'll kind of show you the microgrid application at the end here, but be able to have that, but at the same time have OCPP, so you can have credit card applications and more conventional service provider solution. Next. And then one of the things to realize is a lot of manufacturers out there and certain charging manufacturers will have their own dedicated software or cloud service. Realize that Siemens has taken the path of an open protocols and open connectivity. So whether you're connecting the chargers to our system or our partners, which we have multiples to choose from, if you want to go your own route and take our chargers and connect into that other system, whether it be your own developed or, again, a service provider that you'd like, we support that. And so we're here to make sure that those open standards exist. Next slide. And then lastly, on another product is the C-Charge UC, which I mentioned is more for large fleets, for transit, for trucks, delivery vans, all those kind of different scenarios. It's 150 kilowatt. We have the nice feature of sequential charging with this unit. So we can take one charger power cabinet, hook up 4 buses, 4 fleet vehicles up to it, and it'll charge sequentially through the night. So someone's not having to move it around and all that kind of stuff, but we can charge essentially 4 vehicles in an overnight period very quickly and very effectively. We have as a nice tool to go with it is what we call our Deepfinity cloud solution. And that software enables you to manage the fleet when things get charged for routing, for routes that they may be taking, and so on and so forth. And that's currently being used by New York City, London, and all sorts of cities all around the world. They're using this product. Next slide. As Claire kind of alluded to, Siemens is very fortunate to have been involved with Ford, specifically on the F-150 Lightning. So it is our team, our engineering team, that developed these other products I've told you about, helped Ford develop the charger that you see on the wall behind the truck. So everybody's seen the Super Bowl ads and the truck supporting and powering the house. So that bidirectional power capability is built into this unit. It's not the only thing that's needed. Obviously, there's other equipment involved on the inside of the house, but that allows you to be able to charge your pickup, but at the same time, if you have a power outage, immediately switch around and start powering the house, which is pretty amazing. And once that's, even the first 200,000 trucks are all in reserve here, there's quite a few of those, I would say, that are going to be enjoying that feature. So next slide. This is a neat solution. We worked with another fleet provider that was looking for something different than trying to tear up their, the concrete and their asphalt. They wanted something that was kind of prefabricated, an erector set, if you would, to bring the pieces together and be able to charge, be able to set up a charging network very quickly and very easily without, again, tearing up the parking lot. So easier, and faster, lower cost. And so that product will be coming out near the end of this year. So we're very, very excited about it. Next slide. And then it would be,
Are you finished, Dan?
No, I had a couple more slides, but somehow got chopped off.
Why don't you just go ahead and continue? We'll see if we can drop the slides in. In the meantime, just
no
don't
problem.
Skip a beat. Keep on going.
There you go. So the last 2 slides I was just going to talk about was the microgrid enabled smart charging. We have the capability of taking a microgrid controller, existing site, and tying in on-site, green technologies, solar, battery storage, whatever type of generation might be there, along with the charging infrastructure. For a fleet vehicle, combine that with the building, and have that all work to have a resilient facility that can do all of those items. And then lastly, all I was going to mention was our capabilities from the electrical gear standpoint. This, like the VersaCharge XL, is a new technology. You think of something pretty boring as far as, oops, I guess looks like someone's, are we okay? There we go. Thank you. That's it. Yep. And so that's just kind of telling you that we can provide equipment with dual voltages. We can provide special equipment for outdoor. We've done interoperability testing. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that has to happen to make sure a fleet works smoothly across different electrical products, and that you don't orphan your solution and your fleet. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I guess you'd refer to those as potentially stranded assets, which as we move forward, I think it's important for people to make sure as they buy gas vehicles, think about how long they're actually going to be useful. Well, Anyway, thank you, Dan. Our next panelist is Darlene. Did I pronounce that right, or is Darlene?
It's Darlene.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you very much for correcting me. It's a pleasure to have you, and you are on. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. So I'm good. Good morning. Good to be here. Again, I'm Darlene Terrell Tyson, and I am the Director of the Office of Environmental Compliance and Sustainability within the Maryland Department of Transportation's Maryland Aviation Administration. MDOT-MAA, we own and operate BWI Marshall Airport and Martin State Airport. I am going to be sharing a little bit about MDOT-MAA's sustainability program, and I was asked to join the conversation to share our thoughts and plans on sustainable aviation fuel. I've been with MDOT-MAA for the last 14 years. MAA has historically had a really good compliance program and really interest in improving environmental performance. And so with that, next slide. So a little bit about sustainability. So initiatives that are focused on sustainability, some of our environmental initiatives have been in the area of air quality, with gate electrification and EV charging stations, ground transportations. We've recently purchased non-electric buses. We have waste management program, energy and water reductions and savings programs, and also attention to our natural environment with forest conservation. So through our sustainability program, we work with our tenants and partners to identify ways that we're able to lower our carbon footprint and just improve the sustainability of the airport. We're currently developing our sustainability program, although we will definitely continue in the environmental pillar. We are also looking at the economic, human, and society pillar. Next slide, please. So again, kind of what are our thoughts and plans in the area of sustainability, sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuels are, they have the ability to lower the carbon footprints of the airlines. And so this happens because it's made by blending conventional aviation fuel with renewable feedstocks. Understanding the needs and plans of our airline partners is a key component of the airport sustainability program. Next slide, please. So FAA has approved the use of sustainability aviation fuel as a drop-in fuel. And basically that just means that the transition to the use of this fuel does not require any changes in our infrastructure, or for our airline partners, any changes in the aircrafts or the engines. It's widely accepted by airlines, business, and general aviation. And relative to fossil fuels, the use of the SAF reduces carbon emissions across the life cycle of the material. Next slide, please. So while it definitely has a really good environmental impact, there are challenges. The cost for using SAF is 3 to 4 times greater than the price of the petroleum jet fuels, the production and transportation. Currently, SAF is not produced at a large enough scale that's not happening largely because there's not a widespread commitment to the purchase of the of SAF. The feedstocks are also not readily available. They're competing. The feedstocks, there are also other competing uses for it. And as far as airport infrastructures, while we will not have to make changes to the infrastructures, we definitely need to assess our storage, blending, and our pipelines to make sure that they can sufficiently accommodate that. Next slide, please. So is there a future for sustainable aviation fuel at MDOT-MAA? Yes. While we, the airport, and MDOT-MAA, we are critical stakeholders in making it widely available, we definitely need to, there has to be a commitment for our airline partners for the use. We're continuing to meet with our airlines and operators to discuss and understand their level of interest in the use of sustainable aviation fuel. And some of our future actions are to conduct studies to make sure our infrastructure is sufficient, and also continue to participate in the discussions around transitions to sustainable aviation fuel. Next slide. And thank you.
Thank you very much. This is an interesting space too, because with all the challenges that we have for transportation in general, aviation is one of the largest technical challenges. The others are challenges of implementation, where this is I think a larger technical challenge, and still represents a huge piece of greenhouse gas emissions. So our next panelist from Connect DMV is Burrell. Burrell, am I pronouncing your name, or Burrell, is that the
Burl, but you got it.
Burl.
All blends
Burl.
Together. Perfect.
Okay, Burl, you are on.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much,
Thanks, you delegate. I appreciate it. So I think I kind of stand between the panelists presenting and Q&A, which I know is probably the more exciting and informative part of this. So I'll move through quickly, but I'm taking a little bit of a different direction than some of the other discussion. So real quick, Connected DMV, we're a nonprofit 501c3 based in the greater Washington region. We focused on DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We focus on large initiatives that help on either the economic development or social equity front. And that's really what the purpose of Connected DMV is. About a year and a half ago, we wanted to just take a look at energy and is there anything we could do there? And we recognized a lot of the good work that all of you are doing to keep the Mid-Atlantic region and Maryland in particular, a leader in the clean energy front. But we also said, beyond all the electrification coming, there's a hydrogen economy and a hydrogen ecosystem ready to thrive and explode. And it's being led globally in Europe. It's being advanced at a breakneck pace across the nation. And I'll say more about some DOE funding opportunity coming up. And we kind of asked ourselves, what could we do to help our region accelerate the adoption of hydrogen solutions where it makes sense? How do we remain a leader in the clean energy space? How do we, by doing that, create economic development and jobs and benefits for the region? So, so that was what we endeavored to do. You can go to the next slide. We began some outreach to stakeholders throughout the region. This number is probably well over 200 different stakeholders we've interacted with at this point across academia, industry, community, philanthropy, public sector. You kind of get the idea. We formed a steering committee of give or take 30 engaged, interested leaders to help steer things. You can jump to the next slide. One of the first things we did was we kind of gave a brand to what we're working on, and we call it the National Capital Hydrogen Center. It's not a physical building. It's not a dedicated staff or team. It's kind of more a brand umbrella for what we're trying to do. And then one of the first things we launched is the little bubble on the left. Our green print is sort of our take on a blueprint. And what we wanted to do was do kind of a top-down assessment of the potential for hydrogen in our region. Does this even make sense? Is it worth looking at? Where might we get production? What might be some of the leading demand use cases? What infrastructure assets do we have to leverage, et cetera? So we kicked off the green print work about a year ago and then wrapped that up earlier this year. That's accessible online at hydrogengreenprint.org for anyone interested. And we always envisioned after the completion of the green print, what we wanted to do was turn our attention to the right-hand side of this slide, which we just kind of loosely called H2DMV. And that was to be an effort to begin to identify viable hydrogen projects to deploy across the region. really to begin seeing the ecosystem start to take off. And I will preface a lot of this with, in our region, the transportation sector probably is the leading use case for hydrogen, although there are others. We'll jump ahead, go to the next slide real quick, because I kind of laid out the big picture. This is just a snapshot of the green print. It's, as I said, it's really a blueprint like document with a fancy name, lays out the opportunity, the potential benefits. So you can find that online, as I mentioned. And then if you jump ahead one more slide, right as we were about to turn our attention to identifying projects, along came the IIJA Act from last year, and many billions of dollars appropriated to the DOE to invest in regional hydrogen hubs around the country. And so we started to ask ourselves, is this something the Mid-Atlantic region should pursue? And there was a resounding yes, we want to compete for this money. That's put a little bit of the effort to identify viable hydrogen projects on a bit more of a fast track, to look at, okay, where do we start building it out? How do we really start building it out at scale? And then to better put us on the map in terms of what is our hydrogen hub going to look like, we gave it the name of the Mid-Atlantic Hydrogen Hub, as our effort to go after the DOE funding. And for those that don't follow it, there's competing hub interests in the Gulf states, in Texas, in California, the Rocky Mountain states, the Midwest, New York Consortium, et cetera, et cetera. So we're working with public, private, academia players in a more focused way right now to begin our pursuit of the DOE funding. The DOE intends to fund up approximately 8 hubs to the tune of about $1 billion each. And they just started the process. Coincidentally, the funding opportunity was released last week. And the first step is to submit a concept paper due in early November. So we're scrambling on that. But stay tuned, you'll hear more. So that's what we're working on. If you move forward another slide, this is a very conceptual picture, but it's kind of just a simple view showing really just within our region, how do we foresee supply, demand, and connective infrastructure coming together. As I mentioned earlier, transportation is a very ripe use case within the region. There are a number of other parts of the country, maybe a bit more industrial focused and cleaning up industrial emissions. We're very heavy on the transportation sector, and in transportation, medium heavy duty trucking, aviation that we already talked about a little bit, but I'll say more in a sec, and maritime can be a very compelling use case for hydrogen in our region. So as we've begun to figure out what sort of projects can we pull together and integrate into our hub, you can jump to the next slide. We formed a number of working groups, and I won't read all of these, but we kind of structured a number of working groups around different demand use cases. We also have a team looking at sort of centralized infrastructure. Where do we need production, storage, things like that. And a number of other things that are very, very, very important, environmental justice, and a number of support functions that are critically important to our hub bid. So won't read it all. But if you go forward one more slide, two of our working groups and the work that we're doing, I wanted to highlight here. Interestingly, we heard about sustainable aviation fuel from Darlene. We also have a newish regional commercial airline that plans to operate sort of a regional network on the eastern seaboard of the US that wants to be not sustainable aviation fuel, but hydrogen-powered planes. They're looking at airports in our region, including BWI. They will come to our region. They want to begin hydrogen-fueled commercial regional flights out of an airport by 2025. Their plan is to take existing turboprop planes and work with a provider of fuel cell drivetrain equipment and retrofit those planes for hydrogen fuel cell propulsion. The contract is already in place to do the retrofits. They're just figuring out which airports in the eastern US they're going to operate out of. And they want to be, the first, clean, green, hydrogen fueled airline out there. So stay tuned. I think once they sort out more of the details, there will be more announcements on that. So I'm highlighting that the aviation sector is not just sustainable aviation fuel for jets, but smaller planes can operate on hydrogen fuel cells, which is really an electric drivetrain, as many of you know as well. Within one of our other working groups is public transit, and I highlight that here. In particular, municipal buses is a potential use case. There's downstream, we could get into rail and things like that. I think the hydrogen fueled rail is a little ways off. I think they just put the first locomotive on the rails somewhere in Europe, so that's not quite as far along. But municipal buses beyond what you can electrify is pretty ripe. And if you go forward one more slide, I'll bring your attention to one of the leaders, really, I would say on the whole East Coast, has been Montgomery County. Just a month and a half ago, I guess, that they went after a Department of Transportation grant to procure some hydrogen fuel cell buses and hydrogen fueling stations that'll go at their transit center in Montgomery County. They were awarded that. But the Connect Airlines is the one on the left that's talking about, this is just an excerpt from a press release. They've not announced what airport in the region they're coming to, but stay tuned on that. So Montgomery County was very excited. And why did they do that? They took a good look at their routes, the number of miles they need to travel in a day, how many hours of driving, et cetera, and concluded absolutely there's a portion of their municipal fleet that they could go with battery electric, but a portion that they just can't. And they envision a hybrid type of operation. So we, part of our hydrogen hub effort is looking at what Montgomery County is doing and asking the question, do other municipal bus operators in the region have a similar, need? They just haven't maybe looked beyond what they're going to electrify. So I'll put a little plug in with Montgomery County's help, as well as we're working with WMATA on this, and the DC Transit Agency. We're hosting a half day, really just call it a lunch and learn, but it's just kind of a forum, and Montgomery County's helped invite transit operators from all across the region to kind of come here about what they're doing, why they're doing it, why it made sense. We're going to have a representative from Ballard, a fuel cell technology provider that's gone into a number of buses, kind of talk about the technology. And we really just want to get some feedback on, are there other municipal operators that might be willing to sign on and at least consider longer term, yeah, this is something we're probably going to need or not. So we're just trying to assess where hydrogen might fit in the municipal or public transit space beyond this initial Montgomery County project. So if you're interested, you can contact me. And on the last slide is my contact information. So, stay tuned. It may be a little bit more of a longer term clean energy solution in our region than electric vehicles, which I'm a big proponent of myself, but hydrogen's coming. There will be a place for it. And there's quite a number of stakeholders and other things we're doing that I didn't entirely touch on here. But the hub effort's exciting, and we'll see. So open to questions. And
Thank you, Burl. And I will just remind you, Burl, you got a lot of questions. So when we get through everybody and circle back and get through some initial questions, just check out the Q&A, because you got some questions. We'll circle back. And I would also be remiss if I didn't bring up Montgomery County, as I represent District 15, which is in Montgomery County. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Montgomery County also is implementing and signed the largest school bus conversion fleet deal in the entire country. It's a $158 million deal to convert 1,200 school buses in about 12 or 13 years. So that, in conjunction with what BG&E and the utilities are doing, there's more than one way to help finance the conversion of your fleet. We can talk about that more or offline if people want to. And with that
I see
said,
a couple of the questions. Do you want me to try to take those real quick? Or
no, we'll do them when we circle all the way back.
Okay, go.
Thank you. And last but of course not least, Jason, you are up from Sustainability Partners, and Jason, you are on. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, David. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Good morning, everyone. A little bit about Sustainability Partners. We're actually a private company, but a very unique one, and is that we are chartered as a public benefit company. So any project and anything that we do, we are mandated by our charter for it to benefit the public. And what do? Well, we pay to convert the infrastructure of our customer's choice into a monthly service. You can go ahead and click the button next. So, the challenge that government entities have, utilities have, with new technology coming to the market space is cost, right? So you've got federal funds that are available but require a match. You may have some state funds that are available but require a match. You have a variety of grant funds that are available that require a match. You've got utility funds and rebates that may require a match as well. And that's where our company comes in. We don't manufacture anything. We just have a unique platform to provide funding for public entities. So no upfront capital is required. We're not categorized as debt. We're a month-to-month service. We can be on. Most of our customers have us as an off-balance sheet capital. And as I mentioned, we provide very often the local funding match that unlocks federal and state funds. Expedited funding. So we're very fast. So kind of unique to government in a sense that we move very, very quickly. So we bring kind of that speed of private business into the government space. And what we're doing in the EV space right now is providing the electric vehicle of our customer's choice, along with the charging infrastructure on a per mile, per month basis for vehicles. Typically, it's a turnkey installation. So we work with vendors, both local and nationally, to provide that. And then part of that package is very similar to how a utility operates. It includes ongoing maintenance. So the stuff that gets put in place, we utilize vendors and contractors to come in and make sure that it is maintained. All the while, we do not mark up any goods, products, or services as part of our project. We've got a master contract. That's a 10-page contract, very friendly to government, very easy to have reviewed. So very low transactional costs with a 10-page contract. And it's something that we use in all 50 states. Next slide. And you can go ahead and click it again for the animation. Thank you. So what do? Well, we really help this rapid transition to a zero emission fleet. We're technology agnostic. So, we support hydrogen, we support electrification. It's really what our customers' needs are and their use case. And then we also are able to support the future upgrade to new technology because we are a month-to-month contract and engagement. So literally, we could provide an electric vehicle to our customer, And then the next month, they could elect to swap that vehicle out for maybe a hydrogen vehicle or things of that nature. So without any penalty or any consequence to the customer. So very unique kind of platform. And as a company, we've got this motto when we approach projects of good, better, best. And what we're seeing, especially on the electric vehicle side, is that while the upfront cost may be higher currently compared to combustible vehicles, what we find is they actually have a lower cost and longer operating life cycle. So on a per mile per month basis, the electric vehicle is actually cheaper than a fossil fuel vehicle. So we're seeing that firsthand. This is not conjecture. This is empirical data that we have as a company that we're seeing firsthand with our customers. We also dramatically reduce risk in projects. So we are providing that infrastructure on a month-to-month service. So we're taking the risk for the equipment, for the charging system that we be put in place. And if those things don't work, we don't bill for it. So our customers have complete control over the assets. We work with them and they're experts to put these solutions together, and we still take the risk for performance and operation. What we find is over a period of time, we're seeing for our customers, it's actually a lower overall infrastructure cost that they enjoy. So again, when you're not capital constrained up front, you can take a long-term viewpoint, and that's what we're able to do in our projects. And then we distill it down to a usage cost. So typically with electric vehicles, it's a per mile per month basis. So we work with the customer ahead of time to understand this vehicle in the fleet. We typically drive it 500 miles a month or 700 miles a month or 1,000 miles a month. And we put a cost associated with that so that it's affordable and based on their usage. The great thing about EV vehicles is you can have predictive and preventative maintenance, right? So there's an intelligence there that talks to us and talks to our customers so that you don't have downtime with that vehicle, and you can plan maintenance way easier than kind of traditionally. We work with customers that have really elaborate fleet management systems, all the way to customers that literally have Excel spreadsheets, and that's how they try to manage their fleet. And with electric vehicles, all of that, I can say, becomes much easier to do from a fleet management standpoint. And certainly with what we do, it kind of stops the run to fail cycle in infrastructure. Infrastructure has challenges because, for the most part, government responds to a failure. Whereas new technology, especially in EV vehicles today, in advance when that vehicle needs service or is sick. So it's a pretty different shift as far as proactive versus reactive. Okay, next slide. So our process is really very easy. We collaborate with our customers to understand what their needs are. We facilitate relationships with either existing vendors that they may have or other vendors. We put together the plan with our customer. We go out, we procure the products, and then provide them on a month-to-month basis to the customer, where we're constantly monitoring them and then partnering with our customers to understand what their goals and their initiatives are. Next slide. So one of the things that we do that our customers really enjoy is we put together a real-time dashboard that's tied into their assets. So in real time, they can see the results of their efforts. And with electric vehicles, it's pretty phenomenal that you can see real-time consumption, real-time savings, and certainly a big savings compared to fossil fuels. And we're able to put those together. So a report can be generated daily, weekly, monthly at our customer, however our customers may need that. And you can click the next animation. I think this just highlights one of the things that we're seeing. So this is real savings that we're seeing with a customer, about 47% savings on fuel. And some of our customers are experiencing, let's see, certainly not budget neutral, but budget positive savings, especially with police type vehicles who may not drive a far distance, but tend to idle during the entire shift. So a 12-hour shift may only drive 50 miles or 30 miles, but the idle time on police vehicles in particular increases the fuel consumption. So we're seeing really dramatic savings there. In fact, one department, the fuel savings actually exceeds the monthly cost for the vehicle each month. So, really great results for customers. Next slide. And also in that dashboard, we're tracking CO2 reductions, again, for reporting and analysis and things that our customers may need to do. So really in support of delivering not only the equipment and the technology that they need, but useful data that they can utilize for future decision making. Next slide. And so here, real world numbers and examples. So one of the things that we have as a company is actual experience. We are working with several states, but probably most advanced with the state of Hawaii, in which we're providing the electric vehicle of their choice, plus the charging infrastructure. And there, we're doing a variety of vehicles on a per mile per month basis. State fleet vehicles are being transitioned over to electric vehicles. Ultimately, that's about 3,000 vehicles that will be transitioned over. We're also in Hawaii working with airports, so for buses, schools for buses, and others. And then in other states, we're working with them and potential applicants for the NEVI grant. So a number of states were just awarded for the first round for NEVI for their charging stations, and we're working with a number of applicants to provide that 25% or more match on the local side to put in charging infrastructure through that program. So with that last slide, and it's just contact information. Again, just like everyone else said, there's far more to talk about, but want to be conscious about time and give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. Thank you very much, David.
No, thank you, Jason. Great presentation. And I want to. So when we started off with the premise that we were going to look at 4 pieces, right? What are we doing? What should we be doing? What are we doing now? And how do we do it? And that's why we saved Jason at the end, because all of the things that we've talked about are all great. And they all not only meet or help us to push forward and meet our climate change goals, but clean the air and clean the environment and provide good, clean air for us and our kids to breathe. But it's not always easy to get there. And while it is better, often that transition is expensive. While the ongoing or the total cost of ownership of vehicles or any of these technologies is less, the startup is what is kind of gets people. So that's why we had Jason go last, to let people know there are a variety of options to transition. Jason, as you know, you said about 3,000 vehicles in the state of Hawaii. We passed the bill, part of the climate solutions now. Maryland state is supposed to transition as well. That's about 3,800, 3,700 total vehicles in that transition. And then for school buses, as you heard from Christy, we're providing opportunities to make that transition. Montgomery County's got a transition. So there's a lot of transitions going. There's a lot of opportunities. And all kinds of new technologies that are emerging. And it's really an exciting time to be part of this. So what I'd like to do, we have about 16, 17 minutes left. So I'd like to go through some Q&A. I know there are some basic questions that we wanted to ask, and I know we have some questions. So what I would ask our panelists, if you could just go to the Q&A, And let's just go ahead and get some of those out of the way first, and then we can circle back, because I want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. And again, everybody's contact information is online and in here, so you can reach out to any of our panelists or me if you want to talk about policy. I'm happy to talk all day about it. And our panelists, I'm sure are pretty excited. I think, Christy, the first question is for you. What type of energies and how much make up BGE's energy portfolio?
That's a great question. I'm assuming you are talking, the question is asking about the generation mix.
That would be my assumption as well.
Yeah, I actually don't know offhand, but I know it is on our website, so I will pull that up and put a link in to the Q&A. Sorry for not having a live response.
No, we can circle back to if you find something you want to talk about. The next question I think would be for Burl. The round trip efficiency of hydrogen from electric cylinders to fuel cells is generally less than 50%, which compares unfavorably to battery storage, which is about 90%. Hydrogen is difficult to store, high pressure leakage. Where do you see the applicability considering this? And I'm sure you've got multiple answers, so you're on, sir.
Yeah, true, and yeah, that's why hydrogen hasn't been out in front of battery and electric. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But some of the round trip efficiencies are trying to be addressed through technology advancements in better electrolyzers and things like that. You know, that said, and I did kind of preface some of my remarks. Battery electric is going to be the right answer for lots and lots of the transportation needs out there. Probably always will be for a lot of reasons. When you've got heavy duty trucking, we'll see. Does the weight of the batteries and the charge times impair the overall use case of a fully electrified long haul truck? It's not public knowledge, for instance, forklifts in warehouses. Amazon's gone to almost entirely hydrogen fueled forklifts because they need them running all day long. They need to refuel them quickly. So equipment operations, things like that. Amazon as well, every place they've put forklifts, they're starting to look at, can they use their same refueling infrastructure for trucks coming in and out? It's already there. So again, some of this isn't new. When you start getting into maritime applications, you've got drayage trucks moving things in and out of the port. They need to operate all day long. They can't take a 45-minute break to charge up. So it's going to vary by use case all over the place, where yes, the efficiency of producing hydrogen through electrolysis can be overcome and be economic and viable and a better clean energy solution. So it's going to kind of come down to what's the right mix of battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell in different applications. So
yeah, I think that's. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, feel free to comment on that. I was going to bridge into the next question, which is similar.
So I guess the comment that I would make is I think it's important for people to understand that while there are a lot of challenges, there are multiple solutions. And the Clean Cars Act that we passed in 2022 is $40 million over 4 years, starts next year, basically $10 million a year in state credits to help transition fleets and individuals. And one of them, for the first time, we cut out $750,000 a year worth of credits specifically for heavy vehicles, like the forklifts that you're talking about, and like trucking. This is kind of the first stab at trying to address that particular transitional marketplace, which is in some ways different. There are different applications, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that we got that out there for those folks that are thinking, oh, well, battery electric it might not work in my particular transition case. That there are options, and all that for the Clean Cars Act that passed, all of them that have passed in the past, plus the current one, all define it's not just battery electric, it's agnostic on them. Yeah. Almost all of those credits are going for battery electric because that's what's working in a particular industry at the moment. But we are making sure that that's open to all. And then I think the next question for you is hydrogen cost for generation is very high. It's similar to the petroleum that needs to be transported, associated with safety issues. When do you see the cost coming down to make it economically viable? Also in the state of Maryland, I think a couple of years ago, one of the bills that we passed had hydrogen only needing to be derived from clean sources, not from petroleum sources. So how do you square those two questions, if you could?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when do you see the costs coming down? One of the reasons the federal government, is investing in hydrogen hubs, what we lack is scale. What we lack is a national hydrogen ecosystem for where do you produce and how do you move it around. We need advancements in technology. We need more economies of scale. And that's what the federal government and with a lot of the state incentives are trying to achieve. So there's been a bit of a chicken and an egg between producers and technologies that would like to get out and produce more hydrogen and end users. What comes first? So I think the investment in beginning to build out these hubs, beginning to build out production at scale, and advancements in some of the technologies, solid state electrolyzers and things like that will begin to bring the cost down. At the same time, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the battery electric side with lithium, rare metals, markets for that, costs. On a very personal note, I was ordering my wife, she wants to move into an EV because I drive one as well. And we were kind of waiting for a 2023 order bank to open up. And just to go from the standard to the extended range battery that we were looking at from 2022 to 2023, you had over a 40% price increase just on that battery option. So it's not other supply chain things. So costs are going up there too. So I can't predict entirely how the two are going to compare on economics in 5 or 10 years. But I think in general, the hydrogen world is, 5 to 10 years behind, the electrification wave, but working to catch up quickly. So, when will the costs be on par? It's going to depend, as I said earlier, by use case. Just because of the fact that the hydrogen is, in a vehicle, for instance, is so much lighter and refueling times are so much faster. It has tremendous advantages in that regard. So, but absolutely, how do you produce it economically? How do you transport it, get it where you need it? All has to be sort of figured out for it to make sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the pieces, and folks can follow up with you to talk offline about it, is how do you produce it from the climate change environmental perspective? Because currently it's not produced in the most environmentally sensitive way, and that's a reason that we attached an amendment on a bill a couple of years ago to make sure if you want to produce it in the state of Maryland, you don't even think about burning fossil fuels to do it, because that's not something we're into in the state of Maryland.
Right.
But I guess the next questions I would have, and this is kind of up for Christy. You look like you're about ready to say something.
I could answer the question if you don't mind before you jump on to the next one. The question about the energy mix. So it is sent out in customers' bill inserts every year. The one that was sent out for this year has about 38% natural gas, 33% nuclear, 22% coal, and then 0.18% oil and 0.03% fuel cell. And then renewable energy makes up about 3.36%.
I'd be curious to know how much that's grown. I'm not asking you to do homework right here in front of everybody, but for a lot of people, I think it'd be interesting to know how much that's grown in the last 10 years, because it seems like that the solar aspect has grown a lot. It still has a long way to go, but
yeah, it has. So I was able to find the 2019 version. So our renewables went up from 5.6% to 6.48%. So great. Almost a percentage in the right direction.
Great. Okay. I guess next, we don't have any questions coming directly to our panelists, but just some things that we talked about that we thought we could probably expand on a little bit would be where are we currently in transitioning to zero emission fleets in the state of Maryland? I'll just say that we, the Climate Solutions Now Act and some bills that I've worked on for the state fleet is converting some of the school buses that are converting. Jason, you mentioned some buses converting as well. MoCo is converting both school buses and transit buses. Jason, or does anybody else want to kind of tackle anything else you're working on in the fleet? I know, Jason, you mentioned police cars as well, kind of an operational difference between, let's say, a local county and state police, two different kind of needs. One's driving a lot more highway speeds, one's more call to call. But anything on electrifying fleets? I know we talked a little bit about it.
Sure. So again, I'll reference Hawaii, who has a very aggressive goal. So their goal is 100% renewable powered ground transportation by 2045. So very aggressive goals of not just transition the fleet, but transition to that fleet being powered by renewables. And they're making it happen. David, it sounds like maybe you were over in Hawaii in the delegation there as well, because as an island in a beautiful place, right? They care about their environment. They import all of their energy that they had, and really made a line in the sand to move forward with renewables as well as EV for their fleets. So aggressive goals, and they seem to be achieving those goals. And it takes like a decision and a will and a plan to do that. And so we're seeing that happen there, and it sounds like it's happening in Maryland as well.
Yeah, I have not. I've had many conversations. I haven't been to Hawaii recently. I have had many conversations with their legislators, and they are super, super aggressive. It is a completely bipartisan issue there. Every year that goes by, every day that goes by, they see less land. They actually physically see less of their islands. So I know they've been very aggressive about it. I know we're kind of running toward the end. We have about 3 minutes left. So I'd like to ask if anybody has anything that they'd like to mention. I mean, there's still a lot more to talk, Kathy. So thank you so much for the Clean Energy Center putting this on. We could talk for several more hours on it, but does anybody have any kind of last statements that maybe they forgot to make, they'd like to make very quickly before we turn it to Kathy for closing? Claire, you look like you were, I don't know why. No, you're good? Okay.
I think mobility is a big part of the climate change solution. And so it's a delight to see all of you in the space in Maryland and beyond doing a lot of different work to that effect. And I'd love the opportunity to work with each and every one of you to try to make EVs and bidirectional chargers and all of it, much, much bigger and at much larger scale. So thanks.
So I'll have one final question, and it's for you, Claire. So the question that I would have is, with all the other states you're working in, is this a PSC issue, or what is preventing you from getting more penetration or getting any penetration in the state of Maryland? Because it seems to me that working with BG&E and others to kind of balance out the grid and getting other car manufacturers besides Nissan on board, it's just an incredibly low, yes, it's technical, but low-hanging fruit that we really should be
taking. It is very low-hanging fruit. Our demand response charges are low, and our demand charge management charges are low in the state of Maryland. And it is an issue of getting approval, interconnection approval. And most utilities are having a hard time giving an interconnection approval for electric vehicles, sort of a dirty secret. It's not any different from what we did in 2003 with solar. They weren't really excited about solar installations, but they're doing it now at scale. So I think if we can work in partnership with the Public Service Commission and BGE to try to grow the bidirectional charging space, I think that would be really exciting.
Great. Well, I would say, Claire and Christy, if you'd like in the future, let's have some offline conversations about how the General Assembly might be helpful in moving in that direction. So with all of that said, I want to say thank you so much to our panelists for putting on a great show. I want to say thank you to all of our visitors and participants for their questions and for being here, and of course to Kathy and the Clean Energy Center for bringing this panel as well as the other ones together to address how we transition our future as quickly and safely as possible and how we save ourselves and the planet. So with that, Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, and just great to see you leaving this session with an action agenda item. So thank you so much for that. And to the amazing panel, there's so many questions that I still want to ask. And I look forward to working with all of you to advance the various agendas that we discussed today. This has been a great panel, really great panel. As you exit the webinar, please take a minute to answer a couple of questions and share your feedback to help MCEC plan for future programs and educational content. As a reminder, the recordings from the series will be posted online at www.mdcleanenergy.org/speaker series. We hope you'll join us again for the upcoming programs in the schedule next on October 4th, Solar Technologies and Removing Roadblocks to Implementation. Thanks again to our panel, to our moderator, and we look forward to seeing you all in future sessions. Bye.
Thank you.